Hey guys, Wayback Rewind here. I'm here today with my Kodak Z990 Easy Share Max point and shoot digital camera. This was my last Kodak camera and probably the last digital camera that Kodak ever made, or that was made directly by Kodak for Kodak. It was a very high featured camera. I bought this brand new in 2011 and I want to show it to you next, coming up here on Wayback Rewind. Okay, welcome back. I have here the Kodak Easy Share Max Z990. I bought this camera brand new in June of 2011, and by January of 2012, Kodak was filing for bankruptcy and announcing that they were exiting the digital camera market. And so this has a valid claim at being the last original Kodak camera ever made. Now, you can buy cameras today that say Kodak on them, but they've just licensed their name out to camera manufacturers, and so there are no longer any cameras made by the Kodak company as we know it. You see on here it says Eastman Kodak Company, Rochester, New York. Those of you that have been watching my channel for a while know that I was born and raised in Kodak's hometown, and I even worked there for a time, so I have a lot of loyalty to Kodak. I tried to buy Kodak cameras for as long as I could, and this was the last one that I owned, and it may be the last one they ever made. But this was my camera from June of 2011 all the way up until 2015 when I bought the FZ300. I bought this primarily as a still camera. It's 12 megapixels with a 1/2.3 sensor, essentially the same as the Lumix FZ300, but there are some differences I'm going to talk about in a minute. In terms of video, at that time I was shooting video on my Panasonic HTC HS300 full HD camcorder, and so I wasn't primarily shooting video on this camera. That was until my HTC broke, and then at that time I relied on this to shoot full HD video up until the time that I bought the FZ. From 2011 to 2015, this was in my personal collection as my primary camera, my primary everyday camera. This was a very capable point and shoot camera, at least from a specs perspective. You know, the 1/2.3 sensor is pretty much what cameras of that day and even cameras today still rely on that sensor, although they do tend to have higher megapixels than 12 megapixels. But in terms of shooting video, that's more than adequate to shoot full HD video, which only needs about 2 megapixels. Let me give you a quick overview of this camera. The first thing I want to show you is the battery compartment. Now, that's normally not that exciting, but it uses AA batteries, which is kind of weird, but at the time I thought that was very convenient. Proprietary batteries are always a pain, and Kodak even sold their own nickel metal batteries and their own battery charger. This charger itself is a Kodak charger. This was a very convenient way to power this camera. I tried charging these batteries last night. They've long since gone to battery heaven, so they're not going to work. But I have some modern AA batteries here that I'm going to load this with. I always felt like I was loading a revolver. You know, you put the batteries in here. I always felt like I was putting shells into a revolver when I'm loading this thing up. The memory card slot is here as well. This is not the best location for a memory card slot or batteries, as it's right next to the tripod mount, which is oddly very far off center. I imagine that's because the lens mechanism was here and they basically put this where they could. But now that this is loaded up, I'm going to turn it on. The lens is a very capable 30x lens. Typical for point and shoot cameras of the era, it had a very healthy zoom lens on it with 30x optical with image stabilization built in. So this camera has a lot of capability, at least on paper. On this side you have a micro USB port and a micro HDMI. This is very nice. A lot of cameras of this era would have a proprietary port. Kodak at least had enough foresight to give you a standard micro USB port. That's pretty much it for ports. There's no mic jack, there's no headphone jack, there's no jacks of any other kind on here. It does have a mono speaker. It has a color viewfinder with no diopter adjustment. I did not find the lack of diopter adjustment an issue back in 2011. Today I would have issues with that because I can't adjust it to focus my eye very well. It does have a built-in flash. The lens does not rotate in any way, but it does have a power zoom. Up here, the mode switch is a very capable mode switch. It has the PA, S, and M modes that you expect to see on a camera. That's program, aperture, shutter, and manual. It has scenes. It has creative modes and an HDR and a fully auto. Now the one thing about this camera that's very disappointing is it's not a touchscreen, and so everything is operated by this circular toggle here. So let me take some pictures real quick. I'm going to turn the light off and I'm going to take some pictures. Now the one thing about this camera that was its chief complaint back in the day, and my chief complaint now, it's not a very fast camera. And by fast I mean it makes you wait. So you push this button to line up your shot. It's ready to go. You snap it, and then it takes a couple of seconds sometimes before it's ready and before you can take another picture. So if you want to go snap, 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 this is not your camera to do that. Now, granted, the flash slows it down a little bit, but it's mainly the camera is just not very responsive. Like, I'm pressing the button now and nothing's happening. It took like 3 presses before it finally happened. And the zoom lever, the zoom is not very fast. And more often than not, sometimes you'll press the zoom lever and absolutely nothing happens. Or it'll take a couple of seconds before something happens. So, if this is your camera and you want to do something quickly, you can pretty much forget it. Although I will say that the camera still works after all these years. When I first powered it up yesterday, after I don't know how long, it didn't power up normally. It took a while, but it finally kicked in. Not sure what that was all about. For a 12 megapixel point and shoot, it is pretty capable. Although I'm pressing. It finally took like 3 seconds before that picture actually took. Pressing, take. You come in here, you press playback, and it's pretty good. You can come in here, it does have facial recognition, which none are registered, or you can sort by date, or videos. So let me talk about videos for a second. It has a dedicated video button here, which is a good thing. I'm going to zoom out. It is recording video now. It will record up to 29 minutes of video. That built-in limitation is probably due to legalities. There's no physical limitation that I'm aware of. Being limited to 29 minutes isn't that difficult. Most of the time when you're out shooting in the field, you're not going to be shooting that long. But now that I've shot that video, I can come in here and I can play it. I can come back here to playback mode. I have all the facial by date and then videos. You can go from one to the next with this thumb wheel up here. On a more modern camera this would be a touchscreen and you could just swipe. But it does have this rotary control up here, which is not bad. And then you can turn the display on. You can also use this thumb to go from picture to picture. But the most difficult thing is to program it. You have to come in here. You have to find the wrench over here. And then you can come down here and change your settings. You want to use the full sensor. It has a 4/3 sensor. If you want the most pixels, it can shoot 1080p. That's 30p, which is not bad for this era. The most difficult thing is just the lack of a touchscreen, and this screen is not very high resolution. To get out of the menu, you have to come all the way back up here, which is kind of a pain. Come all the way back up here and then press close. So anything you want to do, you have to use the square ring, press on it, and you can see I put fresh batteries in here yesterday and they're almost dead. So your alkaline batteries are not going to last very long. I kind of liked that back in the day because if I was out shooting, my battery ran down, I could run in the store and buy fresh batteries. In today's world, I would much rather have rechargeable batteries. For a point and shoot camera of the early 2010s, this was not a bad camera. It could shoot decent pictures. This is my primary camera for doing all my travel and family videos. And I shot video of my son's football games and soccer games. And it was a fairly good camera. What finally made me want to upgrade was the lack of a touchscreen, lack of an articulated screen, lack of 4K video, which became more of a thing towards the mid-2015s, and just a camera that was far more responsive, one that you could take pictures as quickly as you could push the button, which this camera is not.
So now I want to show you some sample footage from when this camera was new. So I'm going to rewind it back to 2011. And then when that's done, I'll wrap it up here on Way Back Rewind.
And you see the fast-flowing river of the, what is this, St. John's? Some river. Whatever river it is, over on the other side is Canada. So,
and so there you have it. Kodak's last indigenous digital camera. I could do a whole series of videos on the Kodak Corporation, which I'm not going to do that today, but let's just say that
This was the last camera built by and for Kodak before they declared bankruptcy and exited from the digital camera market forever. The cameras that you buy today are cheap imports with the Kodak name on it. I would strongly suggest not to buy those cameras. To get more reputable cameras from companies that you've heard of, and don't buy the cheap import camera with the Kodak name on it. So if you found this interesting, you found it helpful, please like or subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.